I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the News du Jour. Today I wanted to start off with one mini story and then we will jump into the rest of the news. Honestly, it is a very light day in comparison to yesterday, so not too much to go over, and yeah, we'll jump into it. Let's go. First up, Prince Harry will be going on 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper as promo for his upcoming book entitled Spare. Yes, that is as in an heir and a spare, Harry being the spare. The interview with Anderson Cooper doesn't come out until this Sunday, January 8th, but snippets have already been released of him saying he wants his father and brother back, which is just a little ironic given the fact that he's the one who left, but we'll have to wait and see what else he has to say this Sunday. So now that we've covered our mini story, we have some more news to go over. So climate in California, goodness, it has gotten crazy. So the same area that had an earthquake right before our Christmas break just got hit by another one, you guys. This one was smaller, a 5.4 magnitude, when the first one was 6.4, but still, no fun for residents just trying to go about their day. This one happened in broad daylight around 10 a.m. If you guys remember, the other one happened like in the wee morning hours. But this one seemed to cause even more damage to roads, homes, bridges, and other infrastructure like water systems and electricity. Residents said that even though this quake was technically smaller, it felt more violent for some reason and seemed to do a lot more damage inside their homes and out in the town. Let's hope that they get a breather for a little while after this one, but you know, with the way climate is headed, that is not likely to be the case. They also suffered flooding and mudslides up in San Francisco due to a bad storm. And this is all, of course, just par for the course of what we can expect from the climate crisis. This caused the death of at least one person who was found submerged in their car after being swept off of the roadway. But dozens of people were actually rescued from partially submerged or completely submerged vehicles. 10,000 plus households are currently still without power as of the time I'm recording this, so that could have changed by the time you hear this, but the storm was pretty severe. Let's hope that they can pull through and get everything restored. And next up, as promised, we are going to cover some stories about Ukraine to kind of get you guys caught up. There have been some major developments, so we'll go over those. And, you know, again, the 1-year anniversary of the invasion is coming up, so that's just something to be aware of. It is next month in February. So our first story to do with Ukraine, the New Year's Day attack against the Russians. So in an unusually candid announcement, Russian officials reported a quote-unquote massive blow on a New Year's Day attack committed by the Ukrainian military. At least 63 Russian soldiers have been confirmed dead, making it one of the deadliest single incidents for the Russians in the entire 11-month-long ordeal. The spot that Ukraine hit was actually a school dormitory that was housing Russian soldiers as kind of a wartime measure. The Russian official who made the announcement also admitted that this was a grave mistake, putting so many soldiers in one location to sleep. And there had actually also been munitions and, things that were explosive stored at the school as well, which made the attack even more severe. Of course, all those things blew up, but it also simultaneously destroyed some of their supplies. Ukrainian forces used cell phone tracking to actually locate these new recruits who were living in the school. Like, a lot of the people who've been fighting this war for a long time, they know how to use their phone without tracking. But these new recruits didn't really know, I guess, how to do that. And so the Ukrainians were able to use that cell phone tracking technology to see that there are all these Russian soldiers living in this one space. They then used a U.S.-made rocket to hit the school, and unfortunately, a lot of the men who died in this were young and, like we said, new recruits. So this is really tragic, but of course, Russia was the one who provoked this war and the one who's refusing to leave. So that's where things stand in terms of violence within the country. But I also wanted to note that global food supplies are still suffering and people are dying on the other side of this planet because of this war. As we all know, we are in a global economy today and we are all interconnected. As such, Putin's decision to invade Ukraine did not just affect people in Europe. It also has already affected people throughout the entire world. Putin has continued to block shipments out of Ukraine, which is preventing wheat from getting to Africa, Asia, and the Americas, as Ukraine is one of the world's largest wheat exporters. The two countries in the most dire need due to these shortages are Afghanistan and Yemen, and that's partially because they also have conflict going on within their countries, but Egypt and Lebanon are also really struggling because of this port being backed up because Putin won't let the ships out. And they have, of course, nothing to do with this post-Soviet conflict that's happening in Ukraine. Putin is using the ports as basically bargaining chips in this wrestling match against the West. And he's now releasing grain out of a few of those ports, but only in exchange for things he wants or when he's gotten caught in a bind. So, of course, this is something that's really despicable, deplorable, but par for the course when you're dealing with Putin. And for our last story today, Kim K. So I'm circling back around. Yesterday we touched on, she had an interview on a podcast, which is uncommon for her, I feel like, but it was kind of painted as being controversial online. So I wanted to listen to the whole thing to make sure I wasn't missing something. But basically, as I listened to the whole thing, it wasn't as crazy controversial as some had made it out to be. I think what people were most up in arms about was how it seems that the Kardashian family likes to deflect, and at a time when Kanye is crazier than ever, threatening the Jewish community all while running for president, Kim got on this podcast and cried about how she's never going to bash him for the sake of her kids, which, while admirable, isn't really the point. I don't think anyone wants her to bash him so much as they simply want her to calmly state that what he's advocating for isn't right. But she clearly doesn't want to do that, or she would have done it by now. So that's the summation of the controversy of this interview, just so you guys are caught up on everything and don't have to listen to the whole thing yourself. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "No rain, no flowers." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review or shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us be able to keep creating the news du jour. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfreemedia. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram and just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour. Broadcasting from Oklahoma.